question number 9, it is in the context of Legal Services Authority. I just now read a particular provision, that is Article 39A, that talks about free legal aid. Fine. Now, as per Article 39A, which talks about free legal aid, the Government of India enacted a law in 1987, and that is called as National Legal Services Authority Act, नालसा. ठीक है, तो 87 में नालसा नाम से एक कानून क्रिएट किया गया, लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी एक्ट क्रिएट किया गया और उसके द्वारा नालसा बनाया गया और नालसा का काम क्या दिया गया? उनको काम दिया गया कि आपको पूरे भारत में लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटीज क्रिएट करने हैं और उसका मेन काम होगा कि वो फ्री लीगल सर्विस प्रोवाइड करेगा लोगों में, लेकिन किन लोगों में? तो सी this question number 9, according to me, is slightly incorrectly placed. Why incorrectly placed? Because let me tell you why. Reason being is, now see, in India, read the question very clearly. It is saying in India, legal services authorities provide free legal services to which of the following type of citizens? So there are two things that you have to keep in mind. एक कह रहा है कि पूरे भारत में लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी जो है वो फ्री लीगल सर्विस प्रोवाइड करता है किन प्रकार के लोगों के लिए. अब यहां पे पॉइंट क्या है, पूरे इंडिया में लीगल सर्विस अथॉरिटी जो प्रोवाइड करने का जो राइट है वो है नालसा के पास. नालसा, दैट इज नेशनल लीगल सर्विसेज अथॉरिटी institution which has been created to the act only. So NALSA, now NALSA does not specify, let me tell you one thing very clearly, NALSA does not specify the income criteria for the people to get the benefit of free legal services. Then who specify this? It is specified by the state governments. In fact, it is specified by the state governments, in fact, in India, to get the benefit of free legal services according to your annual income. And let me tell you, since it is different governments, therefore it varies from one state to another state. So in a state like West Bengal, the income criteria would vary in a state from Bihar, in a state from UP, in a state from Delhi. And let me tell you, the criteria that actually is given over here, the right answer of this question is basically A, 1 and 2. That is, person with an annual income of less than rupees 1 lakh and the transgender with an annual income of less than rupees 2 lakh. Now, this is the criteria that is the correct answer over here, but this criteria applies only in it is India. Suppose someone like me, someone like you who wants to, let's say, claim our free legal aid, let's say in a state called Bihar, on this criteria, I will not be getting the benefit of that, because Bihar has different criteria for getting the benefit of free legal services. Similarly, if I go to Madhya Pradesh, I will not be getting this benefit. Why? Because in Madhya Pradesh, the minimum criteria is rupees 3 lakh annual income, less than rupees 3 lakh. All right. So idea is, of course, this annual income less than rupees 1 lakh, it applies only in Delhi. Transgender with annual income of less than rupees 2 lakh applies only in Delhi. But suppose a person is having annual income of rupees 1.5 lakh, he will not get the provision, he will not get the benefit in Delhi, but he will get the benefit, let's say, in somewhere else, maybe in Chhattisgarh. So, having said that, this question is definitely a question which can be challenged in the court of law also in India. All right. So if someone who is a knowledgeable person of legal issues, because I have been a lawyer also, so of course, if someone who has the knowledge of law and the Free Legal Services Authority and their entire provisions, they can also put up a challenge in the Supreme Court or even the High Court regarding this particular question. Because how can this question be asked in the context of overall entire India? In entire India, this provision does not apply. It applies only in Delhi. So had this question been in Delhi, Legal Service Authority provide free legal services to which of the following type of citizens, then the answer would have been 1 and 2 only. Because NALSA says that even senior citizens can also get the free legal services, but they will have to have shown that their annual income is up to rupees 2 lakh only. So सीनियर सिटीजन्स को भी मिल सकता है फ्री लीगल सर्विसेज, लेकिन उनको इनकम दिखाना है 2 लाख रुपए तक का ही। 2 लाख से ऊपर होगा तो उनको नहीं मिलेगा सर्विस का बेनिफिट। तो अब सवाल यहाँ ये है, तो फिर इसमें आंसर क्या होगा? तो अब आंसर ये होगा कि जो मोस्ट एप्रोप्रिएट है, यूपीएससी यही कहता है कि इट इज नॉट ऑलवेज दैट एग्जैक्ट आंसर यू हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई. It is also, you have to keep in mind that you have to find out the most tentative answer, the most likely answer, the most possible answer out of the given options in the answer set. So therefore, by that logic, under the section 12 of Legal Services Authority Act 1987, in Delhi, of course, a person with an annual income of less than rupees 1 lakh and a transgender with an annual income of less than rupees 2 lakh, they are eligible and entitled to get the free legal services in Delhi. So in that way, this is correct. So answer A would be most appropriate out of the 4 options. Rest to apply hi nahi hoga. 1 and 4 could have been there, but it is mentioned that all senior citizens. Matlab kya hai ki irrespective of my income, if I have retired from, let's say, as a lieutenant general in the army, my annual income is more than still 15 lakh in my pension, I would not be getting this particular benefit of free legal services. So all senior citizens would not be entitled to get the free legal services. That is true. So NALSA also mentions very clearly that senior citizens must get the free legal services, but there's a condition that only for those whose annual income is up to rupees 2 lakh. So those senior citizens can put up a request with the Legal Services Authority, and as per section 12 of the 1987 Act, yes, they are eligible to get the benefit of free legal services. That is the point. Okay, so I've given you complete perspective about this issue, but the most appropriate answer is A here. That is 1 and 2. Fine. Therefore, you have to go with A only, 1 and 2. But this question is definitely a question which I consider UPSC would reconsider this question, and probably they will be evaluating the entire paper on not only 100 questions, but rather 98 questions. क्योंकि यही क्वेश्चन गड़बड़ नहीं है, एक क्वेश्चन और गड़बड़ है आगे, मैं उसके बारे में बात करूंगा आगे. ठीक है. Now come to question number 10. Question number 10, it is definitely a part of current affairs only. It was in current affairs only. And how current affairs, let me tell you, I mean, I had a discussion also in my last session on the current affairs issues with some of my students. In fact, there I discussed with all of them about Astana Declaration. India had signed in 2019, in the month of September 2019, India had signed Astana Declaration. Astana Declaration is one of those few declarations on which we as a country are going to achieve the target of Sustainable Development Goals, SDG. And one of those targets of, one of those 17 targets of SDG is also the primary health care. So Astana Declaration, which was in news, Indian government had signed it. It was on primary healthcare issues. Now, this Alma-Ata Declaration. Alma-Ata Declaration was the first declaration, global declaration, in which India had become a party to it. And Alma-Ata was the first of the series of declarations signed by India on improving the health infrastructure in our country. All right. And that is how it concluded, or rather it culminated into the 2019 Astana Declaration. Fine. So it is a issue of healthcare only. So Alma-Ata Declaration, Indian government signed in 1978. Alma-Ata, Indian government signed in 1978, and it was on primary healthcare centers to be created inside India. So in that way, Alma-Ata was asked or had been asked. अल्मा आटा न्यूज में नहीं था, न्यूज में क्या था, अस्ताना डिक्लेरेशन न्यूज में था। तो जब आप अस्ताना डिक्लेरेशन के बारे में पढ़ेंगे तो उसके डिटेल्स में जाएंगे। जब डिटेल्स में जाएंगे तो आपको पता चलेगा कि 1978 में पहली बार इस हेल्थ के इशू पे इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस हुआ था, जिसका नाम था अल्मा आटा कॉन्फ्रेंस। अल्मा आटा वाज द कैपिटल इन फैक्ट ऑफ कजाकिस्तान. So it was Alma Ata conference that took place in Kazakhstan only, and India signed it, and afterwards it became, of course, imperative upon Indian government to improve the primary health centers in this country. That was Alma Ata declaration. Fine. So it was a news in that way. इसी को समझना था. Some of the students, I mean, of course, when I explained this issue while discussing the current affairs, they actually thanked me because they had been able to correct it just because of that discussion only. क्योंकि ये और कहीं दिया नहीं हुआ है. अगर डिस्कशन कोई अगर लेता है सही से तभी आप समझ पाएंगे, किसी बुक वगैरह में ये दिया नहीं हुआ है इतनी आसानी से. Then you have next one, that is Hague Convention. Now see, Hague Convention was on child abduction. So what actually UPSC has done, Hague Convention was also in news. All right, in 2007 was news, and it was basically on child abduction, especially in the third world countries where there is a problem of war and tribal, you can say, warfare. So child abduction was very much there, and because of that only Hague Convention was called for. So that is incorrect, matched over here. Then Talanoa Dialogue. The Talanoa Dialogue took place in Fiji in 2018. ये भी न्यूज में था. 2018 के करंट अफेयर्स की न्यूज में था Talanoa Dialogue. And Talanoa Dialogue was on climate change, global climate change. So it is correct in that way. लेकिन 2018 की न्यूज में था, 19 की न्यूज में नहीं था. इसलिए मैंने आपको जस्ट बताया कि 18 से ही करंट अफेयर्स आपको तैयार करना है. मतलब now since you will be writing exam 2021, majority of you, so for you have to prepare current affairs from 2000 now 18 only, 18 onwards, 19 completely, and 18 not पूरा 18 नहीं पढ़ना है आपको, mid of 18, 19 completely, and 20 also. All right, that's what is the point, to write the examination 2021 in fact. Then you have under 2 coalition. The under 2 coalition is not on child rights. Under 2 coalition was formed by the few of the developing countries in the Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement हुआ था climate change के ऊपर 2017 में, all right, UNFCCC के context में. वहीं पे एक अंडर में एक ग्रुप बना था, इसका नाम था under 2 coalition. ठीक है, तो under 2 coalition is on climate change, not on child rights. ठीक है, so in that way answer is now clear with all of you. 1 is correct, 3 is correct, so answer is C. That is the correct answer of question number 10. Fine. Then you have question number 11. Now, so question number 11 is also very interesting one. That is, the parliamentary system of government is one in which the all the options you can read out very clearly, but the right answer is, in fact, the government is elected by the people and can be removed by them. All right, so this option is incorrect. Why? Because it is not the government is elected by the people and can be removed by them. Rather, the government is responsible to the parliament and can be removed by it. So parliament के लिए वो accountable है, ना कि people के लिए directly. So we have the democracy that is exercised by the Parliament of India. So here in 11 number question, the correct answer is B. Fine. So it is not C. Normally people have gone for C. For this particular person who has given this paper, he has gone for C. It's incorrect in fact. The correct answer is B, because government is responsible to the parliament and can be removed by the parliament only if they lose majority in the house of course, in the house of parliament, in the floor of the house, in the parliament. So of course they will have to resign. That's what it is, the provision in our country regarding the removal of the government. Fine. So no confidence motion इसलिए लाया जाता है कि देख ले कि पार्लियामेंट में उनके पास सपोर्ट है या नहीं है. अगर नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन अगेंस्ट पास हो जाता है तो सरकार को रिजाइन करना पड़ता है. That's what is the provision. You must also be aware of this point. Now question number 12. Let's see question number 12. It's a very interesting question. Very, very interesting question, because question number 12 is interesting due to 2 factors. One is, this question is asking you that which part of the Constitution of India declares the ideal of welfare state. Now see, there are 2 things that you have to keep in mind. Read the question very minutely. I give you one option. Suppose I remove this word called ideal. and then I ask you, which part of the Constitution of India declares the concept of welfare state? Then what would be your answer?
So DPSP.
DPSP. That's correct. So the answer would be
DPS.
DPSP. Why DPSP?
Because
Yes. हाँ बोलिए.
in DPSP it is clearly said that we are state have to create a welfare state. मैंने article भूल गया कौन सा था.
Article 38.
Policies through the norms of the
38. Article 38. So of course, so Article 38 talks about welfare state. Fine, that is correct. There's no doubt about it. But this question is demanding ideal. Ideal का मतलब क्या होता है? Values. Ideal का मतलब होता है values. तो किस प्रोविजन में वेलफेयर स्टेट का वैल्यूज बताया जाता है? तो वैल्यूज बताया जाता है प्रियम्बल में. ऑलराइट, वैल्यूज आर बीइंग डिस्कस्ड इन द प्रियम्बल ऑफ द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. जो प्रियम्बल में साफ साफ कहा हुआ है कि इंडिया इज गोइंग टू बी अ सोशलिस्ट कंट्री. इंडिया इज गोइंग टू एंश्योर इक्वलिटी ऑफ कोर्स, सोशल, पॉलिटिकल, इकोनॉमिक justice, social, political, economic, isn't it? So it is very much clearly mentioned in the preamble of India, preamble of the Indian Constitution about the values of a welfare state. Now that is one aspect to understand it. Now had it been that this question would have been framed like this way, that which part of the Constitution of India declares the concept of welfare state, then you could have gone for DPSP outrightly. There's no doubt about it. Because very clearly, I can show you here also, that is the Barak that I'm having right now in my hand. You can simply see the Article 38 is state to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. That is what actually Article 38 is talking about. Fine, you can see on the screen also. So this is what actually Article 38 of DPSP talks about. But this is not only about the concept of welfare state that is being asked over here. That is the real point over here. Point is not about the concept of welfare state kahan mention kiya hua hai. Point is ideal of welfare state kahan mention kiya hua, kahan declare hota hai. तो ideal of welfare state declare hota hai हमारे preamble में, जहां साफ साफ लिखा हुआ है कि India, we the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign socialist. Now socialist itself is a very basic principle of welfare state. Socialist, secular, democratic, republic, and to secure to all its citizens. कौन secure करेगा? We the people of India, the state. क्या secure करेगा? Justice, liberty, equality, and promote among all of them fraternity. So that is the welfare state basically. What kind of justice you're talking about? We're talking about social, economic, and political justice. We're talking about thought of expression, belief, faith, and worship in liberty, equality in the context, status, and of opportunity. So ये जब कोई state कर रहा है तो वही welfare state हो गया साफ साफ. So preamble would be the most appropriate answer, and I'm afraid to say that majority of the coaching institutes, they are going by only giving you answer in the context of A, because they are only buying the argument कि कहाँ लिखा हुआ welfare state वही दे दो answer. They're not applying their mind about the concept of welfare state and exactly what is the demand of this question. The question is saying ideal of welfare state, not the concept of welfare state. There's a difference between concept and ideal. अगर नहीं होता तो बेवकूफ है क्वेश्चन बनाने वाला, वो आंसर देता कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ वेलफेयर स्टेट कहाँ मेंशन किया हुआ है, ये तो फैक्चुअल क्वेश्चन हो जाता है. याद करके चाहिए आर्टिकल 38. अब बता दिए आर्टिकल 38 में है सर, बस डीपीएसपी में मार दीजिए टिक. यूपीएससी इतना आसान क्वेश्चन इतने easy way में नहीं देता है. So you have to understand the question is still itself is demanding from you whether you have the conceptual clarity about the concept of welfare state or not. So it is ideal of welfare state which is obviously going to be C, that is preamble. ठीक है, तो that is the answer in fact. बाकी बहुत सारे आंसर की में आपको मिल जाएगा A. ठीक है, बहुत बड़े बड़े इंस्टीट्यूट के आंसर मिल जाएगा A. So ये आपको थोड़ा सा दिमाग में रखना है कि वहां भी जो आंसर बनाने वाले हैं उनके दिमाग का एक लिमिटेशन है. They are not experts. They are also students like you and like us. So this is how they have been making the answers in fact. All right, so let us get to the next question. The next question is equally very important. That is in the context of the two statements regarding the Indian Constitution, that it defines basic structure in terms of federalism, secularism, fundamental rights, and democracies. Of course, it is correct in that way. Then Constitution of India provides for judicial review to safeguard these liberties and preserve the ideals on which Constitution is based. Of course, it is correct. Article 13 itself, Article 26 itself, they actually provide the provisions for Supreme Court and Honorable High Courts to actually go for judicial review. So that's correctly the answer. C is correct. So both 1 and 2 is correct, are correct in fact. Then another interesting question, that is question number 14. One common agreement between Gandhism and Marxism is what? That is the yes. Your voice, some
basic structure was pronounced by sir. Basic
your voice, your
Supreme Court itself. I know so far.
Your voice,
sir.
Your voice is not coming out clearly. Your voice is not coming out. I can make out some inference what you were trying to talk about, that the basic structure has been given as a concept by Supreme Court. Fine, that's what actually was your argument.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So idea is this. Of course, you are right that in the Constitution of India there is nowhere the basic structure is actually defined. So in that way, of course, you are partially correct over here. That definitely, since the Constitution of India does not define about the basic structure, not it defines about the judicial review. So by that logic, of course, both the statements would be incorrect. So neither 1 nor 2 would be the answer over this particular question. That is obviously could be a possibility. But at the same time, when Supreme Court announced it, that the basic structure is going to be a fundamental part of Indian Constitution now onwards, it means even the judicial interpretation can also be seen as a part of the Indian Constitution. So Constitution of India does not only mean what is basically being defined by the provisions or by the articles, but also by what the Supreme Court observations have been there. It also is understood to be the part of the Indian Constitution only. Therefore, now even the Constitution of India actually talks about the concept of basic structure and also judicial review through the various provisions. As I just told you, Article 13, Article 226, now both are the part of Constitution of India only, and from there only the Supreme Court had derived the power of judicial review. So that is the point, in fact. Fine. So you probably may be right, but that's what actually is my observation. Fine. So, so let us now see into the question number 14. So one common agreement between Gandhism and Marxism is, there is of course abolition of private property. Fine, that's correct in fact. Because Gandhi had talked about the concept of trusteeship. All right. So Gandhian principle was a concept of trusteeship. And the concept of trusteeship, of course, there was no any private property or private ownership that he talked about. Rather, he talked about a common ownership of the entire trust. And the trust is going to be a society of all the producers and the workers together. That is what actually was the idea of Gandhism as far as economic interpretation of Gandhism was concerned. That is exactly similar to Karl Marx also, which also talked about the abolition of private property. Fine. So Karl Marx and Gandhi come together on this particular aspect of abolition of private property only. That is the point. Fine.
Sir.
Yes, Deep.
Sir, actually, I want to know why it won't be class struggle, because Gandhi.
See, Gandhi never talked about a class struggle where there has to be a struggle between proletariat or a bourgeois. All right. So this bourgeois and proletariat class struggle was a philosophy of Marx only, not a Gandhi. Okay. So that is the reason why. Okay. Yeah. So in the context of India, the next question is that what is the appropriate role for bureaucracy? So of course, the answer is simple and clear for all of you. It is an agency for the implementation of public policy. So public policy is finally executed by the bureaucracy of India. That's actually the answer. The answer is D over here. The question number 16, that is a very important question, very interesting also. The question number 16, why important? That it is asking you the concept of preamble to the Constitution of India. It's a completely conceptual question. See, it says that there are 4 statements. If I'm going by the correct statement, the correct answer is here that it is a part of the constitution but has no legal effect. Now that is the correct answer. So answer is here A. Now the point is why A? A is all due to one fundamental factor, that is in 1995, the Honorable Supreme Court of India, in the case that is Government of India versus LIC, that is Life Insurance Corporation. Now in that case, Indian Supreme Court had mentioned it clearly that the preamble is a part of the constitution, there's no doubt about it, but it has no legal effect. It means it is not enforceable. It is not enforceable. So that is the reason why precisely if the government is unable to, let's say, enforce socialism, so anyone cannot challenge the government in terms of that why socialism is not being implemented, because it is mentioned there in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. So you cannot file a complaint against the government if the government does not execute the philosophy of socialism in India. If the government goes for privatization, then you cannot file a complaint in the Supreme Court or even the High Court challenging that it is violation of the preamble of Indian Constitution, because preamble mentioned about socialism and the government of India does not follow socialism now. So you cannot challenge it. That is the point. So here in the context of this, what is the observation of Supreme Court? See, preamble, first of all, whether it is a part of the constitution or not, it was always a debatable issue. So it debate started right from the case of Berubari. So Berubari case, पता नहीं आप जानते होंगे शायद, बंगाल में ये केस बड़ा फेमस था. So Berubari case हुआ था 1960 के आसपास, 1960s में इनफैक्ट. So Berubari case में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि preamble is not a part of the constitution. ठीक है. फिर सबसे मेजर केस आया केशवानंद भारती केस. Keswanand Bharati was also in news because of his demise recently. You must be knowing about him in fact. So Keswanand Bharati case came up in 1973. And in Keswanand Bharati case, only Supreme Court actually made an observation that preamble is a part of the constitution, in fact. So 13 bench judge, one of the highest number of judges sat together in the Keswanand Bharati case only. So 13 bench judge, they actually gave a verdict in favor of preamble to be a part of the Indian Constitution. It also gives an insight to all of us to see the minds of the drafters of the Indian Constitution at that point of time. Therefore, preamble will always be treated as a part of the Indian Constitution. That is how Supreme Court observed in the Keswanand Bharati case. And then in 1995, in the Government of India Life Insurance versus Life Insurance Corporation case, in 1995, Supreme Court made another observation that preamble is definitely a part of the constitution, but it has no enforceable right. It cannot be enforced in India. All right, it cannot be enforced upon the government, in fact. So it is unenforceable, in fact. All right, that is what was the observation made by the Supreme Court in 1995. So the first option is correct here. All right. क्लियर हो गया आप लोग को ये बात?
Sir, I just want to ask, what is the meaning of the option D, sir?
A part of the constitution but has no legal effect independently of other parts. See, it simply means that it is a part of the constitution but it has no legal effect independently of other parts, which means that it cannot be enforced in isolation. It cannot be enforced in isolation without taking into cognizance of the fundamental rights and fundamental duties itself. That is the basic idea. So it is not like that. Once you execute it, you have to take into cognizance about the issues of fundamental rights also, and also about the fundamental duties and even DPSP. That is the basic understanding about it. Fine. That's the point. Then you have this question of economy. We'll discuss कर लेते हैं क्योंकि फिर पता नहीं बाहर वापस आएंगे कि नहीं आ पाएंगे इसमें. So see the question, this is 17th number question. It is basically of economy. All right. So it is gold tranche, that is reserve tranche, refers to what? So reserve tranche refers to the credit system granted by IMF to its members. See, it is just like CRR. CRR का concept जानते होंगे, नहीं जानते होंगे मैं बता देता हूँ अभी फिलहाल. अभी तो शायद मुझे बताना भी है. नेक्स्ट क्लास में मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी हम स्टार्ट करेंगे. So let us see what is CRR. So see, let me give you a brief idea about CRR. CRR is applied in India among the Indian banks, where the Indian banks are supposed to, that is Indian scheduled commercial banks are supposed to keep certain percentage of their net demand and time liabilities. इसको ऐसे समझिए certain percentage of cash छोड़ दीजिए एनईटी अभी फिलहाल, तो एक certain percentage of cash जो है हर बैंक को आरबीआई के पास जमा करना होता है भारत में. ये भारत में कानून है, आरबीआई एक्ट के अंतर्गत ये बना हुआ है. अब बैंक को जमा करना होता है आरबीआई के पास, ये इंडिया में होता है. अब आप सोचिए, क्या आरबीआई को भी ऐसा कुछ प्रोविजन है कि उसको भी किसी के पास पैसा जमा करना होता है? तो इसका मतलब है यस है. तो वो क्या है कॉन्सेप्ट? वो है आरटीपी का कॉन्सेप्ट. आरटीपी मतलब रिजर्व ट्रांसपोजिशन का कॉन्सेप्ट. रिजर्व ट्रांसपोजिशन तो है क्या? रिजर्व ट्रांसपोजिशन है आईएमएफ के साथ आरबीआई जैसे बैंकों का टाई अप हुआ होता है. मतलब सेंट्रल बैंक्स जितने भी कंट्रीज के हैं जो आईएमएफ के मेंबर है, उनके साथ टाई अप हुआ होता है. तो आरबीआई भी कुछ पैसा आईएमएफ के पास जमा रखता है, और उस पैसे के एवज में, मतलब उसके अगेंस्ट में आरबीआई आईएमएफ से कभी कभी लोन भी उठाता है. लोन का मतलब हुआ फॉरेन एक्सचेंज, डॉलर के रूप में या किसी भी करेंसी के रूप में आईएमएफ से लोन लेता है. तो रिजर्व ट्रांसपोजिशन जितना आपका होगा उसी के अनुसार आईएमएफ आपको लोन देगा. Therefore, reserve trans refers to credit system granted by IMF. तो ये रिजर्व ट्रांस जो होता है वो क्रेडिट सिस्टम, कितना आपको क्रेडिट एबिलिटी है, कितने हद तक आप क्रेडिट ले सकते हैं आईएमएफ से, वो भी इससे आपको डीनोटिफाई होता है. दैट इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ रिजर्व ट्रांसपोजिशन, आरटीपी. ठीक है. और आरटीपी जो होता है वो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज के कॉन्सेप्ट के अंतर्गत आता है. दैट इज द पॉइंट. सी, दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट टू मेक यू अंडरस्टैंड हियर इटसेल्फ. Now what happens? Are you able to see the green screen?
No, sir. No, sir.
Just a moment. Then what is visible on your screen?
No, sir.
Now it is visible? Not yet.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Now
sir.
see what I was trying to explain to you. There's a concept of this reserve transposition. In fact, I mean, you all know about the concept of foreign exchange. Fine. See, foreign exchange, it is consisting of 4 aspects. One is that, of course, the foreign currencies. Second is, of course, the gold. Third is SDR. And fourth is RTP. Now, suppose you may have seen, or rather you may have come across one information about that currently the government of India has declared that it has around 436 billion. There is worth of foreign exchange. $436 billion foreign exchange is there with the government of India. That's what actually the government of India's announcement just a day before, in fact. Today is 11th, I think, or 9th of October only, the government has declared this much of foreign exchange there with the government of India. Now, what do you mean by this much of money in the foreign exchange? This includes, this all four. So it means Indian government is having a worth of 536 billion of foreign currency, gold, SDR, and even RTP. Fine, these all four together are taken up as a concept of foreign exchange. And I've been telling, I mean, see, for last couple of years, I've been telling to the students, this concept is going to be asked by UPSC sooner or later. ये पूछा जाएगा, आज ना कल पूछा जाएगा, what do you mean by foreign exchange? People normally understand foreign exchange only in the context of foreign currencies. यही लोगों को समझ में आता है foreign exchange का मतलब हो गया foreign currencies like dollar or at the max, let's say pound. Fine. So this is what normally people understand. But that is incorrect statement or incorrect understanding about the concept of foreign exchange. Foreign exchange includes all those four aspects. Now, currencies, you've been clear with this concept. Gold is also very clear to all of you. What is special drawing rights? SDR, special drawing rights. See, special drawing rights are nothing. It is basically a kind of a paper currency. Paper currency that is offered by IMF for every member nations to withdraw their rightful share of money. Rightful share of money to address the issue of balance of payment crisis. So to address the issue of balance of payment crisis, a country is supposed to withdraw the money in the form of this paper currency only. All right. Of course, this money would be used to address the balance of payment crisis for a country. That is what is the concept of SDR. SDR is calculated on the basis of the basket of 5 currencies. That is dollar, pound, yen, renminbi. There is Chinese currency. All right, yen, that is Japanese, pound, that is Europe, England, and then euro. These 5 currencies are taken together, and finally the value of SDR is calculated. For example, India's SDR value is 2.68%. So India has a SDR of 2.6%, 2.68%, and accordingly India can withdraw the money that is rightful money of India. All right, that is one thing. RTP is reserve transposition. Reserve transposition, and this reserve transposition is only in the context of keeping some collateral with the IMF. That is, gold is kept with the IMF. All right, by a member country. Suppose India, I can give you the example, like India keeps its gold with the IMF, and of course it is only kept as a collateral. I mean, every time India does not need any money from IMF. But at the time when India may need money, in lieu of this gold, India is entitled to receive the money of foreign exchange from the IMF to address its any BOP crisis. That is the reserve transposition. Fine. So this question has been asked to you in 2020 prelims. That's what actually was the point. Fine. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
So this was the question, that is gold tranche, that is reserve tranche. All right, it is refers as a credit system granted by IMF to its members. That's the correct option. Okay.
हेलो सर, साउंड नहीं आ रहा है सर.
Sound नहीं आ रहा है? How many of you are unable to hear it out clearly? Am I audible or not?
Yes, sir, you are.
All right, thank you. So can you cross check your net connection? Probably there might be some interruption due to internet connection. If you can cross check your internet connection, then it would be good for all of us. All right. So shall we move forward then? So let us move to the question number 18. Let's have to be, we have to slightly faster then. See, question number 18, again, it is in the context of polity only. So here in the question number 18, the question is with the reference to the provisions of contained in part 4, which of the following statements are correct? So see, DPSP is not enforceable by court. You all must be knowing about it. So option A is already incorrect. One is incorrect, in fact. The moment one is incorrect, so obviously you will have to find out B or D. So या तो B होगा आंसर इसका तो D होगा. अब देखना है कि B में क्या है, तो B this will not be enforceable by, it's correct basic. So obviously 2 is obviously going to be correct. The answer is anyhow B or D. Now see the question number option number 3. Principles laid down in the part are to influence the making of laws by the state. It's absolutely correct. That's what actually DPSP is all about. It is directives to the state. That is what is known as DPSP. So 3 is correct. So 2 and 3 is the answer of question number 18. Fine. Then you have question number 19. Another good question. So of course here you have to understand that there are two statements. One is that a person who is eligible to vote can be made a minister in a state for 6 months even if he is not a member of the legislature of the state. So say the statement is not fully correct. Why? Because if I am become eligible to vote at the age of 18, can I be made as a minister? No. To make me a minister, I need to be at least by age of 25. That is also a provision of the Indian Constitution. So a person below age of 25 cannot be made as a minister. So by that logic, of course, the very first statement is incorrect. Fine. Then second statement is according to RPA Act 51, a person convicted to a criminal offence and sentenced to imprisonment for 5 years is permanently disqualified from contesting an election even after he is released from prison. That is correct. So someone is convicted for 5 years and above, he is actually now disqualified to contest the election under the RPA Act amendment done in 2005. Fine. So B is the answer over here. So 2 is correct. Then question number 20. Question is in the context of 3 statements again, and that is the President of India can summon a session of Parliament at such place as he thinks fit. That's correct, in fact. The Constitution of India provides for 3 sessions of the Parliament in a year, but it is not mandatory to conduct all the 3 sessions. No, it is not like that. It is mandatory to conduct. So there is a winter session. There is of course, monsoon session. There's you can say the budget session. So these 3 sessions are compulsory to be conducted. All right, that is what actually provision. Then there is no minimum number of days that the Parliament is required to meet in a year. So idea is this is correct. There's no any minimum days mentioned in the Constitution. Therefore, in 2018, some of the parliamentarians had put up a petition before the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, in fact, to make it compulsory to have a minimum number of days to conduct the session of Parliament. Because normally a convention says that 100 days minimum, you can say, sessions have been conducted in our Parliament till now. So 100 days for the Lok Sabha and 120 days for the Rajya Sabha, that is the minimum days that has been conducted. But there's no compulsion to have this, in fact, days to be followed in India. So therefore, some parliamentarians have also appealed to the Lok Sabha Speaker and also filed a case in the petition Supreme Court to make it compulsory to have a minimum number of days to be offered inside the Parliament to have a session for the parliamentarians. So that is the reason why this question has been asked to you. So correct answer is here 1 and 3. All right, that is the question number 20.